The book of Hebrews offers one of the clearest explanations of how the coming of the Messiah brought about a decisive paradigm shift to the Torah's sacrificial system. For those still wrestling with understanding the once-for-all sacrifice of the Messiah, the book stands as both a theological anchor and a bold challenge. The message is that the heart of the Levitical system, sacrifices, priesthood, and ritual cleansing, has been surpassed by something far greater. What follows is a brief look at how Hebrews chapters 9 and 10 make this argument and what it means for followers of Messiah today. Hebrews 9 contrasts the temporary outward cleansing of the Old Covenant temple sacrifices with the greater transformative effect of Messiah's offering. In other words, the Messiah's sacrifice accomplishes what the Levitical system could not: a purified conscience and a permanent reconciliation with God. For if the blood of goats and bulls and the ashes of a heifer, sprinkling those who have been defiled, consecrated for outward ritual purity, how much more will the blood of Messiah, who through the Spirit of the age to come offered himself without defect to God, purify our consciences from dead works to serve the living God? So then he is the mediator of a new covenant, so that those who have been invited may receive the promised inheritance of the age to come, for deliverance from violations committed under the first covenant. The writer then warns of the seriousness of rejecting this new covenant gift in chapter 10, verse 26 and following. For if we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remains no longer a sacrifice for sins, but a terrifying expectation of judgment and the fury of a fire which will destroy God's enemies. Anyone who disregarded the law of Moses was put to death without mercy on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. How much greater punishment do you think a person deserves who treads underfoot the Son of God and profanes the blood of the covenant by which he was made holy, and insults the Spirit of grace? For we know him who said, "Vengeance belongs to me, I will repay." And again, the Lord will judge his people. It's a terrifying thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Here the argument intensifies. If the Old Covenant carried severe consequences for disobedience, rejecting the superior sacrifice of the Messiah carries far greater ones. This is because the entire temple sacrificial system has now been fulfilled, and thereby rendered obsolete, that is, null and void, by the perfect offering from Messiah. The result is what some describe as a radical rejection of the temple cult, the core sacrificial system laid out in the book of Leviticus. In contrast, the book of Hebrews declares that the Torah's purpose has reached its intended goal in the Messiah. The heart of the law, that is of Moses, sacrifices and priestly mediation, has now served its temporary role and giving way to something better, permanent, and effective. Jesus expected his Jewish audience, and especially his apostles, to begin living under and teaching his new covenant laws. This transition was difficult for many Jewish Christians at the time, as the book of Acts, Hebrews, and Paul's letters all attest. Yet the call remained the same: to be subject to Messiah and the new covenant he established by his ministry and ratified with his death. As Paul makes clear in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, "Though I am free and a slave to no one, I have made myself a slave to everyone, so that I may win more people. To the Jews I became like a Jew, so that I may win Jews. To those who are under the law, I became like someone under the law, even though I myself am not under the law, so that I may win those under the law. To those outside the law I became like one outside the law, not myself being outside the law of God, but subject to the law of Messiah, so that I may win those who are outside the law." If the early Jewish Christians struggled to grasp the implications of this paradigm shift, it's understandable. The temple system had defined their identity for millennia. But for Christians today, Jew or Gentile, The message of Hebrews should be unmistakable. The Messiah has fulfilled the old system and established a new and better covenant, one grounded not in repeated sacrifices, but in his once for all offering. Just as it was clear to the New Testament writers, so it should be clear to all who call themselves followers of Messiah today.